We need to talk about a master-level persuasion technique, one that governs way more of our decisions than we could possibly imagine. It's this silent force that's at play in salary negotiations, when you're buying a house, even in everyday bargaining. And the scary part is, it turns our own rational mind against us.
Now, this isn't just some clever phrase, It's a statement of cognitive fact. We all like to think we make our decisions based on data and logic, right? But cognitive science shows us there's a much more fundamental reality at play. That very first figure mentioned becomes a psychological anchor. It's like a gravitational center for your entire thought process from that moment on.
So, how does it get its hooks in you? And why is it so hard to escape? Well, the answer is baked right into how our brains are wired. Our ability to compare and contrast things is an amazing tool, but it also creates this huge strategic vulnerability. And understanding this is absolutely key to seeing the persuasion tactics that are happening all around us every single day.
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to identify the trap itself. Then, we'll look at the psychology of the win that's really a loss. After that, we'll dissect the four-stage anatomy of the anchor, explore that fatal flaw in our brain's wiring that makes us so vulnerable to it, and finally, we'll get into the tactical countermeasures you can use to take back control.
All right, let's start at the very beginning, the moment of capture. This is the critical point where the outcome of an entire negotiation is pretty much decided before the real conversation even begins. It's this invisible force that can take a sophisticated expert and turn them into an unwitting participant in their own downfall.
And here's the wild part, the biological reality of it. Your brain is essentially incapable of ignoring that first number. It doesn't matter if it's a well-researched, perfectly reasonable offer or a number plucked completely out of thin air. That number sets the terms of reality. You aren't just hearing a number, you're being pulled into a whole different world of value, and it's a world where the other person is holding the map.
This brings us to a really common and dangerous illusion, the feeling of a win that was, in fact, a perfectly engineered loss. I want you to think back to the last time you negotiated something, maybe buying a car, and you felt that rush of satisfaction from getting a discount. Well, that feeling, that's actually a huge red flag that you've been anchored.
This table just breaks down the trap so perfectly. We walk away feeling like we drove a hard bargain, got a great discount, but the reality is we were captured. That feeling of getting a smart bargain, it was an illusion. The second someone else names that first number, you lose your internal compass. You stop asking, what is this thing objectively worth? And you start asking, how far can I pull them away from their number?
This is a well-known cognitive bias. It's called the Heuristic of Movement. We end up celebrating the distance we moved from their starting point, and by doing that, we become prisoners in what you could call a reasonable zone that was entirely defined by someone else. You're celebrating getting a discount on a price that was never real in the first place, and you end up leaving massive value on the table without ever even knowing it was there.
So let's get into the mechanics of this. The anchor method isn't just some random trick. It's a very precise four-stage system of cognitive capture. And really, understanding this framework is the first step to being able to dismantle its power over you.
Okay, so here's the clinical process. It starts with a baseline strike. That's the initial number. Then comes selective accessibility, which is where your brain starts looking for reasons to justify that number. Next is insufficient adjustment. That's our natural tendency to not push back nearly far enough. And it all concludes with the big payoff for them, our own illusion of agency. Let's break down each stage.
Stage 1. The cage is being built, and this is the critical leverage point. That first extreme number they throw out, it has nothing to do with being fair. It's all about something called numerical priming. It immediately engages a specific part of your brain, the intraparietal sulcus, which sets the high and low boundaries for the entire rest of the conversation.
Now that the anchor is set, your brain enters this state of almost desperate justification. Since it's the only real data point you have, you subconsciously start searching for any reason at all why that number might be true. You completely stop evaluating the actual asset and you start evaluating the anchor. Your mind literally narrows its own focus to fit inside the cage that they just built for you. And this is where the trap closes. You push back, you negotiate, but because that starting point was so extreme, you stop adjusting the second it feels just a little less painful. You haven't reached fair value, you've just reached the edge of your own psychological endurance. They let you win a concession that lands the price exactly where they intended it to be all along, and just like that, game over. And here it is, the payoff. You walk away feeling satisfied, feeling like you moved them, and you engineered a great outcome.
But in reality, they just moored you to their dock. The second you started bargaining against their anchor, you fundamentally accepted their reality as the starting point. You feel like the architect of the deal, but you were really just the carpenter following their blueprints.
So, why is this four-stage system so ridiculously effective? Well, it's not magic, it's biology. We are literally hardwired to fall for this stuff.
The number one reason this works is because the human brain is what you'd call a metabolic miser. Basically, our brains are lazy. Calculating the true objective value of something from scratch is cognitively exhausting. It burns a ton of mental energy. It's so much easier for our System 1 thinking, our brain's fast intuitive mode, to just take a number that's already there and tweak it a little. Our brain will always choose the path of least resistance.
And then you've got the contrast principle compounding the problem. A second lower number seems like a massive bargain simply because it's being compared to that extreme initial anchor. This completely bypasses your logical filters, and it triggers an emotional reward for saving money that was never actually at risk. You end up feeling good about a decision that was, in reality, a total compromise.
Now, this is maybe the most insidious part of it all, what's called the selective accessibility model. The anchor doesn't just influence your current thinking, it actually biases your memory. It makes you literally unable to recall data and reasons why that anchor might be wrong because it has hijacked your brain's search function. You become blind to better options because you're so fixated on that anchor.
Okay, so we've unmasked the system. We know how it works. Now, let's arm ourselves with the tools to dismantle the anchor and take back control.
Look, the most effective defense is to simply refuse to play the game on their field. First, if someone drops an extreme anchor on you, refuse to acknowledge it. Don't even negotiate against it. Second, name the tactic out loud. Saying something like, "That's an interesting starting point, but I'm going to focus on the market data," can strip the anchor of its psychological power. Then you immediately reset the baseline with your own data-backed anchor. And if their anchor is just way too extreme, the most powerful move you have is a strategic exit to break that cognitive tether completely.
It's really important to remember that anchoring isn't inherently evil, right? It's a tool. Used manipulatively, yeah, it obscures risk and creates illusions. But used ethically, especially in leadership, it can be incredibly powerful. You can anchor a team to a high standard of excellence. You can use a fair but ambitious goal to provide stability and get the whole group focused on high-value outcomes. You're just using the gravity of the anchor to keep everyone focused on what matters. What this all reveals is a fundamental truth about influence. You know, we think power is found in compromise, in meeting somewhere in the middle. But true power is found in establishing the baseline. In the game of influence, the first word spoken isn't just the beginning of the conversation. Very often, it's the destination. So please, don't get caught in the trap of fighting for inches on someone else's field. Don't waste your energy just adjusting the gap between their number and yours. The real strategic move, the real power, is to become the architect of the reality itself. Stop being the carpenter and start owning the baseline.